Good evening, everyone, to this Monday, May 12, 2025 special meeting agenda of the Oyster Bay East Norwich School District. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Yanni for the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. We have the presentation. So I'd like to provide the board and the community with an update on the grounds staff restructure that we've been working on, and just share some of the details that we have to provide some information. The presentation will be posted online, and some of the highlights were posted already online. So the first thing that I'd like to go over is the Board of Education goals and the superintendent's responsibility. One of the goals that we have is finance and operation. And if you look at the finance operation under the third bullet, which was presentation that was provided in September, the board approved those goals, and those are pretty much the sort of the guidelines that we follow in every decision that we make. So one of them is talking about the third one is talking about student achievement and the essential programs that we have, and the fact that we are committed to increase operational efficiencies. The other thing, which is the superintendent's responsibility on a day-to-day operation, is to recommend to the board any reorganization, any organization that we provide under personnel and non-personnel items. In terms of restructuring, restructuring is not new. We have done restructuring in the past. So when you look at some of the restructuring that we have done, one of them was at the administrative level. Over the past couple of years, we have restructured, lining everything in each building under the principal of schools. So the principal at the high school, for example, in this case, and every school lined up in terms of all the administrators that we have left in the district. When you look, for example, at the custodial structure, we have a similar structure where we have the head custodian and then the custodians and the cleaners, which varies in every building. That is kind of following the same structure where each building is its own entity. When you look at the current centralizing leadership, you will see that every building has pretty much a head custodian and a principal in every building, and all the other administrators. And I would like to focus on the structure at the custodial level, the grounds level. So you're looking at, obviously, we have the three schools, the high school, Vernon, and Roosevelt. And what we have in terms of the ground structure, we have myself and my deputy superintendent supervising the groundskeeper, the supervisor of the groundskeeper. And then we have, currently, we have one groundskeeper, we have one laborer, and we have another laborer that has not been filled since a vacancy we had sometimes, I believe, in March. When you look at the current titles that we have and the responsibilities, you will see that we have the supervising, the groundskeeper, the two labor, and each one of them have different responsibilities. The major difference between the laborer and the groundskeeper is that the groundskeeper is able to operate heavy machineries and also when you look at the ground supervisor as the ability to order and, obviously do requisition and supply and all of that. So in terms of the work that we have right now, the different responsibilities, those are provided to us by obviously all the work in the civil service and the community. Currently, right now, the structure that we have in place, at any given time, the entire ground crew, which is the ground supervisor, the groundskeeper, and the laborer currently, they are at a building working. The other two buildings are not covered because obviously the grounds crew can only be in one place. When you look at some of the responsibilities of the groundskeeper that we have right now, we have obviously the daily operation of mowing the grass, the trimming, clean up garbage outside, and the seasonal, which is snow cleanup, the athletic fields, and some of the fall cleanup. The occasional work that we have, sometimes we have food drive at Thanksgiving, toy drive in December, the movement of the instruments, and the move of some of the cheer mats that we have for different activity. Some of the things to take into consideration is that over the past few years, last 2 years ago, we had an installation of a second turf field. About 5 years ago, there was installation of the first turf field at Vernon, and all the playgrounds have a safety surface, and the last one that does not have a safety surface will be installed this summer. So there is a little bit of less maintenance on that end from the grounds crew, and we also have power washing that is done by the custodial crew inside the building. When you look at the guidelines that we have right now, currently on the left, we have the high school, we have the installation of the new turf field. So you have obviously the front of the building and the cleanup all around. The Vernon, you have obviously the area where the baseball and the softball field is. That new area has been paved completely where the new basketball court and the playground is. And then obviously you have the turf field. The memorial field, we have pretty much the field, the football field that is used during the main football games. That is not used for practice. And then we have on the side is the practice field and obviously the baseball field, the stadium area. We have done some research in terms of the staffing that is required to maintain the fields that we have, and when you look at the box on the top left of the screen, you will see that that is coming. Those are the requirements to maintain a field in top conditions. So you'll see that the site that we have. Site will include everything that is in our property, and that's about 45.5 acre. The land is everything except the footprint of the building. So that will include parking lots, that will include areas that are not maintained, the areas on the side, turf, every possible thing that you will see except the actual building in itself. So when you look at the recommended level for service, the acceptable is almost 2 people. Standards is 2 people and a little bit more, and higher would be 2.6 people. Those are recommendations that were provided. When you look at the process for the restructuring, like any position that is related to civil service, we have to follow steps that are completely outside of our control. So if you look at the first thing is the district must file a layoff plan with Nassau County Civil Service at least 2 weeks prior to proposed layoff, indicating the position they are recommended for abolishment. That's the first step. The second step is the civil service will respond to the plan, indicating which employees will be affected, right, based on the restructure. Then the third step is the superintendent will recommend the abolishment of the position, and at that point, it will provide the employee with notice of the meeting date in which the board will take action. The fourth step is that, if approved, the minutes are submitted to the Civil Service, and after their review, Civil Service will send a formal correspondence to the district regarding the preferred list for the affected employee, and separately, they will notify the employees on the list that they will be on. Once the district will submit a classification of position requesting the proposed positions, titles, and also the administrative and direct supervisors. Then if the classification is approved, Civil Service will provide the district with the names of the individuals that they must be recalled. That's from a list. If not, then the vacancy will be posted and recruit and interview the candidates. Once the final candidates have been selected, they must complete a Civil Service application to be submitted for review, and then the Civil Service will determine that the candidates meet the minimum requirement for the position. And the board later on will take action of the superintendent's recommendation at a public meeting. Those steps are kind of dictated to us by the Civil Service. There is no flexibility on any of those in terms of what we can do. The next slide is talking about the proposed structure. Right now, what we have is the superintendent, myself, and the deputy superintendent report, the head custodian, and the principal report, and then each building will have a groundskeeper. So when you look at this position, when you look at this structure, and you will see that each school will have its own groundskeeper. So one of the positions that we have right now, we have a laborer. That position may elevate to a groundskeeper, and each building would have its own groundskeeper assigned to that building, just like the structure that we had in the other place. So when you look at the overall structure, you will see that the principal, the head custodian, and the groundskeeper on the outside. So at any given time, you would have a person that is completely responsible for that building at any given time, at any given project. When you look at the comparison and the cost, you will see that the structure is completely different. So in terms of the assignment of each one to each building, each groundskeeper to each building, it's completely different than the previous structure. In terms of the cost, the current structure will include the person that has not been replaced, but when you look at the saving is in the range of $70,000. And that obviously is pending all Civil Service approval. So in terms of the advantage, of this kind of position is obviously there will be accountability, responsibility, and pride for the building that they serve, because each person is going to be assigned to a building. The cost saving is almost secondary at this point because it's minor. There is tremendous flexibility in terms of the people being in the building. And when you look at the position, one of the laborer position is elevated, or we will ask to elevate that to groundskeeper, which is a higher position. There is obviously major benefit of reduction in traveling time. Right now, the grounds crew has to travel from one building to another. So that is one of the, obviously one of the benefit of this structure. And the second thing is that this is closest to the building and to the programs that we have. Okay. I don't know at the board if you have any questions on the presentation.
board have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Dr. Yanni, will one groundskeeper be enough to complete the larger items like maintaining all the trees that run down the sides of Vernon and at the back of the high school?
So we believe that at this point is one groundskeeper at each school will be able to maintain for large projects. Even in the past, we have used outside company that would just come because they have more equipment. So if a tree goes down, we don't have the equipment to, excuse me, let me just answer the question to the board. I think I deserve that. Okay. So if there is a huge tree that goes down, then obviously our crew does not have the equipment to deal with that. So to answer your question is yes.
Second question, if a job currently needs to get done at Theodore Roosevelt, for example, as per the principal's request, do they call you under the current structure? And then how does that work? How does the follow-through work in that circumstance?
So right now, the current structure is designed in a way that on a weekly basis, together with the deputy superintendent, I meet with the ground supervisor, and the general work is being kind of assigned at that point, is going to be done at that point. If there is a specific project that comes up, usually the principal or, in some schools, the assistant principal will call me, and then I will let the ground supervisor know.
And that change will now go through the principal will now initiate that on their own?
Correct, because then at that point, the principal can call directly the groundskeeper outside or through the head custodian every morning.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one question. Based on the organization that provided this standard for level of performance, we're currently staffed at 3 or 4 employees, which would be the high level of service section. Do the employees that we currently have do all the activities needed to hit that standard of level?
So all the work that is done to maintain the facility is done by our ground crew that we have right now. But outside extensive work, such as aeration of the field or maintain, the work that we do on trimming maintaining the turf field, cleaning that up, all of that is done by outside company because obviously they have the machinery to do that, and they have been doing that for several years. This is not a new thing. So you talk about fertilizing, aeration, cleaning up the turf field, putting all the pellets back in. All that is done by outside company. It has not been done by our crew and will not be done by the groundskeepers.
That's what I asked. I asked the answer.
And any other questions?
Yeah. Dr. Yanni, I have a question. So you touched upon this, but over the years, we've seen CPI run about 9%, and we're limited on levy-to-levy increases of 2%, right? So you looked at across our district, and the decision was, and the board supported this decision, for the elimination of supervisors. So you touched upon it, but could you run through which supervisors in academics have been eliminated?
So over the past several years that I've been here, we have restructured, when you're talking about the supervision, before when I was appointed here, we had a supervisor of mathematics, of science, of English, of social studies, of world language. Those positions have been restructured under the supervision of a principal and the assistant principals. And we believe that, and some of the budget presentations that we have done, we are trying to provide a direct positive impact to the students without, obviously with the financial conditions that we have. So when you look at the the difference between the CPI, which has been ranging, like you said, 6-7% over the past couple of years, and the fact that we have a tax cap of 2%, closing that gap, we've been able to achieve that every year and maintain a budget that is affordable to the community by creating a more efficient system any way that we can possibly can. So to answer your question, that has been sort of what the goal, the Board of Education goals, and my job in reorganizing. I know that those are not easy decisions, but we have to do what's best for the students.
Okay, so if we don't keep our budget at a levy-to-levy 2%, what happens?
Well,
If we exceed that 2%?
Well, the exceeding the 2%, obviously, it's not an option unless the board decide to override the cap. But it is more than just the 2%. It is all the initiatives that we have in place, all the work that we have done. So we've been using reserves whatever we can. So there is always that fine balance of what kind of efficiency we can put in place so then we can continue to provide the students with those opportunities. So when you think, for example, all the work that we have done with, over the years, we have maintained all the teachers and all the programs and try to find ways of provide the students with, class size that are affordable and that they are provide the best education for the students. And that's, it's difficult, but you're trying to find efficiency in everything that we do.
And you have rearranged teachers also and increased class sizes so that we can maintain programs, right?
So we have looked at this year some of the class size and like a first grade and third grade, there was a conversation that we had. The other thing that we also did to avoid sort of a loss of instructional time, we have reduced the number of traveling teachers between buildings, just to provide them with an opportunity to be in the class and provide a direct impact on the students.
So, I just read the Facebook pages, and I just want the public to be clear. Like, we have eliminated supervisors throughout the district. These are very difficult decisions to make. But we have not eliminated any program for our students. We have not eliminated athletics for our students. We are working under a very difficult situation for the last 3 years. Our tax cap is 2%. Inflation is very high. And we contribute tremendous amounts to pensions and benefits. We're in a very difficult spot. So I just want everyone to understand this is across the board.
Excuse me, let our board member respond. Are you finished, Ms. Santos?
I'm finished. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Young.
Anybody else?
Dr. Rani, so there'll be one groundskeeper in each one of the buildings in order to respond to any issues that come up, whether it's overflowing garbage cans or tree limbs hanging or something to that effect. What happens if one calls out sick?
So
I'd like to hear the answer.
I think when it comes down to people being out, we will call, it depends on the season. So if there is a need, we will call a substitute for the groundskeeper.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I do.
Okay, yes, Ms. Castrogiovanni?
Dr. Yanni, before we eliminated the academic supervisory positions, can you tell me roughly how many people they supervised, each supervisor? Also, our head custodians, approximately how many custodians do they supervise? Because I just want to be clear and understanding, because right now we have a groundskeeper supervisor who supervises 2 people. Do we have that anywhere else in our organization?
Pretty much every department ranged from 7, 8 teachers to several, 10, 9. So that is in terms of the supervisors. We have one department that has supervision of the lowest number, but that supervisor has additional responsibilities assigned to our caseload, to our workload. In terms of what we currently have, that's pretty much the supervision, the structure that one of the slide that I put up in terms of the grounds supervisor supervising actually right now 1 groundskeeper, 1 laborer.
Dr. Yanni, how long will it take for civil service to get back to us?
I don't know how long it will take, but based on the work, working with civil service, hopefully in a week we will have the next step on that list.
Okay. Okay, any other questions from the board? No? Okay, let's move on to,
Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Yanni. Let's move on to public participation on agenda items. In accordance with the open meetings law, school board meetings where school district business will be discussed are open to the public. The Oyster Bay East Norwich Board of Education welcomes public comment at its meetings. The Board of Education will respond to comments and/or inquiries in the appropriate manner. This portion of the meeting is designed exclusively for agenda items. A sign-in book is provided for those residents wishing to address the board. In order to be recognized, you must be signed in. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes. The board president will call you to the microphone in the order in which you have signed in. Public discussion is prohibited regarding matters relating to an individual's reputation, privacy, or right to due process, which in some way could be violated. A second commentary period is provided for non-agenda items prior to adjournment. We thank you for your participation and cooperation. Have a list? Thank you. Ms. Patricia Burke.
Good evening. Good evening. It's not on. Mic isn't on. Hello. Okay. The superintendent's report titled Ground Staff Restructure shows good effort towards transparency, but still it falls short in several areas. 1, the superintendent includes District Policy 4210, which outlines his responsibilities as superintendent of schools, but it fails to include Policy 4220, which outlines the responsibilities of the Board of Education, centering himself as the decision maker without acknowledging the importance of public input or the agency of the board. Outlining the proposed grounds restructure with cost comparison is helpful, but falls short of an adequate business justification. It also comes after the board has approved the higher salary amount of $270,030. How will a 3-person team with no clear managerial structure be more efficient than the current 4-person team? If the superintendent is truly invested in simplifying organizational structures and consolidating salary costs, why is he not applying this approach to his own office? He is the highest paid employee of the district, and in 2024 was the 11th highest paid New York State public school educator. In 2024, his total pay was $376,036. The deputy superintendent is the second highest paid staff member in the district. 2024 total pay, $264,427. It does not appear the superintendent intends to dismiss the majority of his staff and restructure his office to be positions of equal pay and responsibility as with the groundskeepers. He will stay comfortable in his fully staffed, highly paid, hierarchical office, while the one remaining groundskeeper scrambles to onboard and train 2 new co-workers. 3 decades of institutional knowledge about the upkeep of Oyster Bay East Norwich properties will be lost in the process. Regardless of the superintendent's waffling justifications, is this restructuring worth losing public trust over as we approach a budget vote and trustee election on May 20th? Margins are narrow in school budget elections. Last year's budget passed by 302 votes. The public petition against this proposed restructuring now has 745 signatures, more than the total number that voted last year. If the board does not reject the superintendent's recommendations, we risk further damaging the trust between the Board of Education and the public, potentially leading to a vote against the $67.7 million budget. If this happens, our district will face financial challenges
Thank you,
far
Ms. Burke.
greater
Your
than
time
the
is up.
69,000.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Thank you, Ms. Burke. I would like to call Ms. Lisa Burke to the microphone, please.
Hi. I'm going to read the last part of what Pat was not able to say. What? I'm going to read what Pat was not able to say. So forgive me if I overlap here a little bit. Again, despite how the superintendent has framed the issue, his recommendations are not a done deal. You have the opportunity as the board to do the right thing for our district, and I hope we will see you act on that. So that's it. Thanks. I have a few questions also. In watching the presentation, it was all very nice. I wish we had seen it much, much earlier, but there are definitely questions. I have a problem still with the structure of your one groundsperson per school. Just out of curiosity, do you have a landscaper in your house? How many people come to fix your, to do your yard? And it's a little space, and you're talking about 3 schools that and the administration building that have a lot of property. So I do not also think that it is safe to have just one person on a property at a time. There are many tasks that require 2 people for safety reasons. Then also, I know that you say that the groundskeepers would report to you or to the principal. I still do not see that working on a daily basis. Right now, the supervisor is able to assign the crew. If it's raining one day, maybe they can't do one project, but they can go do something else instead. That they have the maximum flexibility to be able to go through all properties right now. You mentioned that there are outside people that come out and that they are paid to do that. Well, that eats into your savings right there. And I think, they also do jobs like helping out moving instruments. I got from the meeting the other day. If you have one person on the grounds, how would that happen? That's it. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. I'd like to call, I think it's Kaylee Watts or Sheila Watts.
It's Kelly Watts. I felt like high school
Oh,
over
sorry,
again.
Kelly.
Okay. So my name is Kelly Watts. I'm actually the one that helped start the petition on change.org for Richie and Alberto and this administration. To date, as of right before this meeting, there were almost 800 signatures to that petition because we support the alumnus of Oyster Bay and we support the men that work here and men and women that work here. So I just had a few things I wanted to say. In the early 90s, the crew had 3 people. The administration realized that it was not working with 3 people, and they hired a 4th man as a part-timer in 1999, and a full-time in 2000, plus subs when needed. Support and collaboration, that's what is needed for the crew. Instead, it appears that you have been forcing the crew to work shorthanded for years, as the 4th man laborer position has extremely high turnover and is currently not filled after a resignation in March, correct? How does it work with 3 people? Like, I'm genuinely confused, because Vernon alone has 22 acres. So you can have one person covering 22 acres, and like Mrs. Burke said, when you have your own property, you have 3 or 4 landscapers on just a tiny little plot. You can have one person for 22 acres. That's a little mind-boggling for me, and it's been tried and didn't work. So 1 man per building, it's not safe, it's not efficient, and what happens, as you said, when one person gets sick, takes off, has a family emergency, something happens, and I mean, what I thought that Mr. Lorita said earlier is what he asked, what we thought he asked, is that the men that are doing it now, are they doing their job? Or are they being fired for, like, that's kind of being very convoluted. So that's the question that I want to know. If they're not doing their job properly, okay, but we haven't heard any of that. You didn't answer that question, that's what we thought you asked. So, you know, I'm just very confused by the reconstruction, if they're doing their job the way they should be doing their job. Eliminating the supervisor roles centralizes control with the superintendent, who has no direct knowledge of grounds maintenance. So that, to me, again, a little baffling. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Watts. Mr. Thomas Burke, please.
President, can I address her question real quick?
Hi, my name's
Mr. Burke,
Thomas.
I
Sir,
apologize. May I respond to her question before you go for a moment?
you can do whatever you would like.
Thank you, sir. We got the clock stopped. I just want to clarify, when I was talking about high standard, I don't know what slide page it was, but there's an organization that is determining what is the quantity of employees needed to do groundskeeping based on the amount of land that we have to actually cut. That organization provided 3 standards: acceptable, good, and high. And at each level, something different is done. Maybe at that high level, you're doing aeration, you're doing seeding, which is why I was saying he was answering the question. And my question was, you know, they maintain the equipment, whatever that might be, to have that high level and require more employees. So that was my question I was asking him. Are we, as per the standard that the organization provides, are they currently doing the level of work needed for that quantity of employees that we have? And as per the, Dr. Ayani, what is the name of that organization that provides the standards we used?
The organization is the National Center for Education Statistics.
National Education for Statistics. And Dr. Ayani answered that they currently don't provide all the services needed to have that level of staffing. So I just wanted to.
Thank you, Mr. Lorita.
Is it
Mr.
my
Burke.
turn?
Yes, it's your turn now.
I get ready? Here we go. I have nothing to say. All I can say is 22 years Richie's got in and you're cutting him off at the knees. Why? Because you don't like the man? Same with Alberto, he's at 8 years. I also understand Richie's father was a grounds supervisor. Is that true? So you got family bonds there and everything that goes way back? But I mean, if this boils down to something where you're in a position of leadership, why don't you show that leadership and work this out and not take 22 years when a man's in his prime earning years, as you well know, and you cut him off at the knees for no cause. Same with 8 years, no cause. That, sir, is not right, and it doesn't go in Oyster Bay. You can put it all over. I did 30 years in a union in the town, and I did another 10 as a structural iron worker. Let me tell you, the people that worked on the ironworking buildings, I feel a lot more trust than what's coming out of this office here. All right? So why don't you take it upon yourself, if you don't like somebody, you can work around anything. My father was a federal mediator. He was district commissioner of the East Coast and the Gulf, and he had to settle big strikes. And he did that by going to both sides and listening. Not just saying, no, I don't like you, you're out. Let's restructure. It's just not right. Okay, Superintendent? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. Mr. James Ricker?
All right, good evening, everybody. So I'm speaking tonight in a personal capacity as a parent, as an advocate, an alumni, and as someone deeply committed to the values we uphold as a district. I want to begin by recognizing significant progress our district has made since 2020 when Dr. Ayani did start. Instructional enhancements to expand technology and capital improvements. We've seen meaningful strides, and I know that that work continues. My comments tonight are offered in that same spirit of excellence, to desire not just to protect our reputation, but to ensure our decisions continue to align with the values that got us here. I want to speak about the proposed ground staff restructure, specifically the elimination of 2 positions currently held by Oyster Bay High School graduates from the class of '97. These aren't just job titles, these are lives. These are people who learned here, stayed here, and chose to serve the very community that raised them. That kind of loyalty, that full circle investment, it's something most districts would celebrate, not quietly remove. The restructure is projected to save $69,914 in a $67.8 million budget. That's 0.10%, 0.1%. It may look responsible on paper, but the cost to those affected is everything. Their jobs, their income, they are standing in a community that they've helped maintain for decades. I do understand they'll be placed on a civil service preferred list, but it's important to clarify that it doesn't guarantee them a place in the new structure, and the difference between those requirements will likely disqualify them altogether. So what it looks like a restructure may function more like a removal and not one that leaves a door open behind it. This creates potential legal and moral dilemmas. Yes, the district may be following proper procedures, but are we living up to our values? We say we believe in real opportunity. We say we want students to succeed and give back, and these 2 men did exactly that. And we are now about to erase their service for less than 1% of the budget. It makes no sense. This isn't a necessity. This is a choice. And with choice come responsibilities, especially when they affect and represent the very mission we claim to uphold. Once a position is eliminated by a board vote and a new structure is adopted, we lose flexibility. The path narrows, the opportunity to revise, to do this differently, it disappears if you vote this through tonight. So I'm urging caution before this becomes irreversible. I say this not as a challenge, but as a reflection, and in full appreciation of the thoughtful leadership this district has experienced over the past few years. If anything, the progress we've made and the recognition we have earned gives me confidence that we can take a second look when something may intentionally cause harm, not because we failed, but because we care enough to make sure that we get it right. If we're gonna move someone, a laborer position, we should make sure that they can be on that list and qualify for the groundskeeper. Okay, we can put this off for a year, and we can make sure that they qualify for the positions that we're restructuring. Food for thought.
Thank you, Mr. Ricker. Ms. Anne-Marie Longo? Ms. Anne-Marie Longo?
So I
I'd like to know on the process of restructuring civil service classified positions that you stated today on this board agenda. Last week, we were very confused on the process. A letter went out letting the people know that they were no longer going to be employed. Then we said that had to happen because that's what Nassau County needed. That was what our deputy superintendent told us. And then we tabled the vote that basically was voting no for the item. And we come out with an A, B, C, D, A through I list of what the board should do based on Nassau County's civil service. So did we do that after the budget, the board meeting? Did you people, as a Board of Education, know this? I'm a little confused with the process for restructuring, and I don't ever remember in budget discussions that we were saving $69,000 on a $270,000 line that is in the budget for the budget we're voting on Tuesday. It's not, this should have been done, and the proposed new structure should have been 200. I guess the question still is, why are we not hearing this in open meeting laws based on what they call the Sunshine Law, Ms. Santos? We all know what that is. I'm saying that because I don't know if my statement on Facebook was just saying people come out. The discussion is that the Board of Education needs to let the people know what's going on, needs to know where we're restructuring. I don't see this. This is after the fact. This is an entire week after the fact. And these numbers here are an entire 5 months after we went through our entire budget process. So I'm a little confused. Also, I would like to know on the supervisors how much money was saved, because in 2022, 2023, 2024 budget was 2.9% increase. This budget was 3.4% increase with nearly a $4 million excess at the end of the budget that we put in back into the taxpayers' number, back in reserves, back in undesignated and unfunded balances. So to say that we need to cut $69,000 or we need to cut supervisors because Oyster Bay School District does not have the money, we have the money. And we keep adding money. We just put $30 million into our schools. We have the money. We have the lowest class sizes on Long Island. We have the money. We have the teachers. We have the money. So this $69,000 is not saving. And taking out supervisors, I'd like to see where student achievement is better because we took out supervisors. Where finance and operations is better and where we're saving money. I also would like to know how the money is being spent because I don't see it. And I don't know in a budget process, 5 days before the budget is being voted, that there's a line here that we're changing based on board approval.
Thank you, Ms. Longo. Mr. Todd Cronin.
Good evening. I just find this whole presentation a little funny after I spent a lot of time talking to Ms. Castrogiovanni about this, and we spent a lot of time, was it agreeing to disagree? So we agreed to disagree over what we were talking about. But it is kind of funny that this whole thing now has come about. And along with everybody else, you know, the timeline is a little strange. You know, you set the budget. I know Ms. Reyna spends a lot of time setting the budget, and the budget was already set, correct? We didn't change, you didn't change the budget going from 270 to 200, right? You didn't take that money out, did you? No answer? Thank you. So, you know, you talk about percentages, and I know that's a big thing. You know, you talk about 200,000 on a $67 million budget. You're talking 0.295%. If I did my math right, I tried. Even with 270,000, you're talking 0.398%. You're saving 69,000. And if you're going to hire a part-timer, because I know one of the board members said if somebody calls out sick, what do? That school doesn't get taken care of? Who's going to go out and cut the grass? The kids? You're going to give them a lawnmower and a weed whacker? Is the head custodian going to do it? No, because he's got enough to do with the school itself. Now he's going to work.
The answer was they hire a substitute list for groundskeepers.
Aha, so we're going to hire substitutes, right? Now we're going to hire part-timers, which we talked about. So that true 69,000 is not going to be 69,000. because now you're going to pay for a part-timer to show up and cut the grass, correct? So it's not 69,000. It's going to be a lot less, right? So you're talking about a part-timer. And don't say you're not going to hire a part-timer, because Dr. Ianni already offered me the job and I turned it down. Settle. All right? You look at these two individuals. They come from Oyster Bay, and I'll say it, they're Baymen. That's who they are. They went to this place, they went to this school. I'm from the school. I sat up there for 8 years. I know how tough it is. You think this was tough? You should have been here with the Holson case. This place was packed, okay? So with that, to the board, for all of you that are going to vote against this resolution, don't be intimidated. Don't be bullied. Stay in your grounds. Do what is right, what you think is right for this district. Okay? That's the big thing. You look at what these guys do every day, cutting the grass and everything else, and I got 13 seconds left, but anyway, I'm going to go over and I don't care. They don't make $360,000. They don't even make $100,000. Okay? So I'm going to have to cut it short because I know Ms. Kowalski's going to whack me right here. So all I'm going to say is to Dr. Ianni, I worked with you on the board. I've known you. I have supported you on everything probably when I was on the board. This, I cannot support you at all. And that's coming from me to you. And when you restructure, sometimes it's not cutting the guys down low on the bottom. Maybe we need to start at the top.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Cronin.
restructure that way.
Ms. Windhausen? Ms. Windhausen?
Good evening. Dr. Ianni, I just have a question. You spoke earlier about all the restructuring you've done so far with the department supervisors. Did you have to go through the same civil service process to eliminate these positions, or did they all resign and leave on their own and you had no choice to restructure?
I mean, you can answer.
Done with the 3 minutes?
No, that's just my question.
Are you
You
done
keep
with-
talking, no, but that's my
You done
question.
with- So finish the 3 minutes and I'll answer your
What, give them
question.
all of your questions.
That's my question. You keep talking about the restructuring, but did you restructure them or did they leave on their own?
The administrators were not part of the civil service.
So did you have to go through any of the same process or they all left on their own?
You asked me if they were part of the civil service. They were not part
Through
of
the
the civil
same,
service.
through the same process, I asked.
Different process.
That you mean them leaving on their own?
I'm sorry?
You mean them leaving on their own?
Different process.
Okay, that's the answer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to non-instructional personnel. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the non-instructional personnel resolutions as listed in their entirety. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
I oppose.
Motion carries. Let's move on to public participation on non-agenda items. Did anybody sign in? No? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? So moved. Second? Second. Thank you, everyone.